Oh man, guys, we got to talk about the race. I mean, I had a video planned for today, and I was going to upload it straight after this, but I've just got to talk about the race. What the hell was that? That was the most incredible race in such a long time. And overall, we've had such good races really in 2019 and the second half of the season. Ever since I think the French Grand Prix, where there was that controversy, where everyone was like, F1 is so boring. It's really been incredible how many good races we've had. This was up there with Germany this year as race of the season. Between those two races, you could debate all day as to what the better race was. And this race today was absolutely crazy. You had the constant battles over the field, the constant Hamilton-Verstappen battle, the Ferrari collision, and then the shock podium from Pierre Gasly. And as I'm recording this, Hamilton is still P3, but I'm hoping SAINZ gets that third place because for me it was maybe a 5-second penalty for Hamilton. But we'll get into that in a moment's time. Let's try and break this down a little bit and let's talk about the full race. So the race got underway and it was a pretty straightforward one. Hamilton getting past Vettel at the start, and overall it was a good battle, a tense battle between Hamilton and Verstappen. And overall you could kind of notice that the Red Bull just had the pace really. Vettel was a comfortable third the whole race, and then you had Leclerc fighting through the field after starting from 14th with an engine penalty, and also you had Bottas and Albon kind of bringing out the rear in terms of the big teams. And then outside of that you had Gasly, who qualified in a really good P7, and then the Alfa Romeos as well, bouncing back a little bit when it comes to form this weekend. And overall it was a pretty average start to the race. You had a couple of battles here and there, and it all kind of kicked into the life around the pit stops. It was your standard Brazil procession race, if you will, with a couple of Leclerc overtakes sprinkled in between. But then the first round of stops happened, and Hamilton managed to undercut Max Verstappen. But then Verstappen responded straight away, and it was a short but fierce battle between the two of them. Really good fun, and we got to see just a taste of what we might get next year if hopefully Verstappen has a stronger car more consistently next season. Because this weekend Honda took a massive step forward when it comes to the power unit, like literally ridiculous. They were so hard on the speed traps, and even you could see at the end with the drag race between Gasly and Hamilton, the speed of the Honda was incredible, like really, really surprising. So yeah, overall Verstappen got the upper hand. He had the quicker car this weekend and also drove the better, I think. And it was his race to lose, realistically. Hamilton gave him a good fight, as always. And GG's to the pair of them for that, because it was a good scrap in even just the first pit stop alone. And then eventually the race kind of filtered through, and we got to the second round of pit stops. Hamilton tried to undercut him again on the medium tyres this time, but he was too far back, couldn't make it work, and it was looking comfortable, for Verstappen really at the end of the day. And then it all kind of got a bit crazy, and it all started with Bottas and a very rare reliability problem for the Mercedes. His engine was smoking, so he pulled over to the side of the track. In my opinion, I thought it was safe. I was actually shocked to see a safety car come out, and I didn't agree with it. Having said that, as a neutral, I'm glad we saw that safety car, because it set up an incredible final 20-30 laps of the Grand Prix. And pretty much the safety car came out, and you had Leclerc pit in, you had Albon pit in, Verstappen pit in, but Vettel and Hamilton stayed out. Vettel stayed out because he had no more tyres left, according to his team radio, and also Hamilton, pretty much it was like a last chance to just try and win the race, so they kept him out, hoping that the medium tyres would do the job. And it set up the final stint beautifully, the final battle, because you had Hamilton at the front on used medium tyres, then you had Verstappen, Albon, Vettel, Leclerc, all on soft tyres behind, Vettel's being the oldest of them all out of all those soft tyre runners. And on the restart, it was insane. Like, you could see all the tactics in play as Hamilton was holding him up right until the very end, getting up the hill towards the start-finish line, and then eventually he shot away. Verstappen, though, was quick to respond. He was on him, as was Alex Albon. He also was really quick to respond, and he caught Sebastian Vettel around the outside of turn 1. Very, very close between those two. Really good racing, but fair racing between the pair of them. And yeah, overall, it was then a Red Bull 1-3. And then shortly after that, Albon was putting the pressure on Hamilton. He couldn't quite get past. And actually, Sebastian Vettel came back at Alex Albon in the Ferrari and tried around the outside, didn't quite work out. And then suddenly Leclerc kind of came alive. He was doing nothing this race. The hard tyres weren't working for him, so he went into the softs, in that final stint. And suddenly Leclerc came alive in the race with the updated fresh power unit, and he was using that power, and he eventually managed to challenge Sebastian Vettel and get down the inside into turn 1, and that's when it all kicked off even more. So it was good enough as it was. The race was fantastic. He had the constant Hamilton-Verstappen battles, those two switch positions like 3 times this race. And then you had Albon as well, mixing it up with the big boys. Good to see from Albon because, so far he's been a bit off the pace with the big boys since moving to Red Bull. And then, like I said, it sprung into life when Leclerc sent one down the inside of Vettel into turn 1. And they had a good scrap. And then they went side by side out of turn 3, then towards turn 4 on the back straight. And there was the smallest bit of contact. And one of the weirdest incidents I've seen in a long time. Sebastian Vettel, in shades of what was Turkey 2010 with Mark Webber, he came across slightly on the straight, just enough to the point where there was contact between the two of them, the two teammates, and they both went out of the race. And it was really surprising because if you watch it back, there was no contact with Leclerc's front wing. It was tyre-to-tyre contact, and that actually ended up blowing up both of their tyres, or more specifically, Leclerc's tyre actually stayed intact, I think, but it came off of the wheel. That his tyre just popped off the wheel. It was really, really strange. And then Sebastian got a full-on puncture and destroyed his entire floor. So a really weird incident there. Me personally, I see it as a racing incident because I think Vettel penalised himself by retiring from the Grand Prix, if that makes sense. But I can't really see how you'd give a penalty there in such a weird incident. It was literally nothing. They brushed tyres. We've seen, much worse contact between cars and nothing happened. I even remember in the last race in Austin, Bottas ran over Verstappen's front wing at turn 1 on lap 1. He literally drove over it, hence why Verstappen had wing damage and nothing happened. So, it's weird how that works out sometimes. But contact between the Ferrari drivers and, if you're a Ferrari fan like myself, for example, you'd be hoping now for the season to end because it's been a miserable season really for Ferrari and they've got a lot of work to do, a lot of questions to answer, and it's not been good. But anyway, back to the race. The safety car came out again for a second time because of the contact, all the debris on track. And at one point, it looked like Mercedes committed suicide with Hamilton because there was only 4 laps to go. And you think to yourself, surely they're not going to clear the debris up in time. And therefore, they've just given Gasly third place. And at this point, Albon was in second. So it was going to be a Honda Power 1, 2, 3 with Gasly getting a podium and Red Bull getting a 1, 2. And it would have been Albon and Gasly's first ever podiums. But as always with F1, it's not over till the checker flag. It's not over till it's over. And they cleared the debris up really, really quickly, actually. And we had 2 full racing laps. And what a 2 laps it was. It was insane. Verstappen just flew away out front. He just continued where he left off. And then Albon and Hamilton got to work because Hamilton was in 4th place. He actually pit during the second safety car, went on the soft tyres, and he got past Gasly straight away, and he was on the back of Albon really, really quickly. And there was an interesting kerfuffle, which is still being investigated now. I'll have a quick check on my phone to see if there's been a decision. But what happened was, going into, I believe it's turn 12, give or take, it's the second very slow, long right-hand hairpin before the Sena del Lago. Albon takes the normal racing line, maybe slightly wider than you normally would, but considering the tyres are struggling at this point, it kind of made sense. And Hamilton, you could see he saw red. He had that fire on his belly, and he was looking for that podium, that second place, and he just sent one down the inside. And my initial reaction, I think, it was a racing incident. And if you're gonna put blame on one side, I think it's more on Hamilton rather than Albon. And if you look at it back, there's the second angle, which is kind of from behind. You can see Hamilton. I thought Hamilton was much more alongside, but he wasn't. He was actually quite far back, and he even locked up as well going into the apex. And also Albon coming across, it just made for that kind of typical race incident, really racing incident where there's contact. But a part of me, Mercedes have won both championships. There's nothing to play for. I would really like to see maybe a 5-second penalty to Hamilton, just because I want to see SAINZ, who finished in 4th place in the McLaren, get to a podium, and that would really put the icing on a cake for what was an incredible race. So I'm going to quickly check my phone to see if there's been a steward's decision before I get caught out and this video has become irrelevant. Okay, so as I speak, there's not been a decision. Hamilton has been summoned to the stewards, and even in the interview, Hamilton said you could tell by his body language and the way he spoke, he thinks it was his fault, and he apologised to Albon. So that kind of says everything you need to know, really. So hopefully SAINZ get that 3rd place. I'm annoyed the decision hasn't been made quicker so that we could actually get that visual of SAINZ on the podium, because that's the whole point. That's the magic of F1, because you don't know when the podium is going to happen, for a driver. And that might have been SAINZ's one and only chance in his whole career. You just never know. And he could have actually been on the podium physically, which is a real shame. But shout out to McLaren. Carlos Sainz from 20th to a potential 3rd place. Driver of the day. Pierre Gasly second. Those two guys, absolutely insane. Really, really well done. And yeah, that's going to cap off, guys, an absolutely mental race. This race and Germany, both of them, mental, like so insane. I'll probably still give it to Germany. You know, I think this one right now is very fresh in the memory. It's very, you know, we just come off the race, so it's quite raw in a way. You know, if you give it time to settle and look back at the two races, for me personally, Germany was much more spectacular. You had like 4, 5, 6 stops. You know, you had cars spinning all the time. You know, Hamilton going off, Leclerc going off, Hulkenberg going off. You know, all that drama. You know, and also in that race as well, like for example, Vettel from 20th to 2nd, Verstappen winning that race as well. You know, these mad races, Verstappen always coming out on top, and he had Kvyat on the podium as well. You know, Stroll in 4th place. So both of them are crazy races. You can fall whatever side of the fence you like. But overall, guys, today's race ended with Verstappen winning, and then we had Pierre Gasly in 2nd place. So after the little incident between Hamilton and Albon at the hairpin, Hamilton kind of slowed up and waited to see if Albon was going to come back past, but Albon was struggling. He was backwards, and he finished, I believe, 14th in the end. So Hamilton got on with it. But in that time, Gasly got back past for 2nd place, and there was a lap left. No DRS at this point because of the safety car we just had for the Ferraris. There's only 2 racing laps. So it was just down to pure slipstream. And Hamilton tried everything on the last lap to the point where he managed to get a little switchback undercut out of the final corner. The last, not the official final corner, but the last brake zone. And then all the way up the hill, he managed to get the switchback, get on the inside of Gasly. And they were going side by side down to the finish. And you could see the Honda power. Gasly, even though he was on the outside, which is the worst line to be on, he managed to stay in front and hold the 2nd place in a straight out dogfight drag race to the line and get 2nd place. And I could not be more happier for that guy. After what happened this season, this is the Pierre Gasly I'm talking about, and he's been fantastic since he's gone back to Toro Rosso, and he absolutely deserves that. Even after qualifying yesterday, 7th, really good job from him, and I'm so happy for him. And Red Bull and Toro Rosso, they get a Honda 1-2 around Brazil, which is fantastic, and Hamilton in the end, currently 3rd, but hopefully that will go to SAINZ, which is what I want personally, because that would really make it quite wholesome in a way to see SAINZ and Gasly get their first podiums in Brazil. And, you know, they've both been, I won't say victims, but they've been done dirty in a way by the way Red Bull managed Verstappen, and they kind of put every other driver to the side. So it would be nice to see them get their rewards in a way. But yeah, guys, I'm going to end it here. So much to talk about, absolutely insane. I might do a podcast with the boys at some point next week, hopefully. But for now, if you enjoyed this video, guys, this kind of short race rundown, then drop a like on the video and get subscribed if you are new for daily Formula 1 content, and also turn notifications to not miss any videos from me. And also finally check out the 2 videos on the screen after this if you have missed them by chance. And yeah, guys, that was Brazil, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. And hopefully Abu Dhabi is just as good as that one. But until then, goodbye from me, guys.